Hello enthusiasts and welcome to this new video from the blog www.moonwatch.fr. Today I am offering you a review of a watch that everyone knows. It is often one of the first purchases when you want to treat yourself to a beautiful Swiss watch. It is the Tudor Black Bay, in this ideal smiley version which carries the reference The Tudor Black Bay Smiley watch is a long bridge watch that was announced at Basel World in 2014. Its blue, almost black bezel sets it apart from other well-known divers. Bearing the reference 79220B. For blue, this watch will only be produced for 2 years. Thus, unlike other watches, current Tudor Black Bay models, this watch, known for its dial, Smiley, stands out by using a thinner ETA caliber than the in-house caliber announced by Tudor a few years ago. It's hard to believe that this model is already 10 years old, as it is so timeless, and especially because the new references are almost the same, with a few minor differences. It's hard to believe that this model is already 10 years old, but the community surrounding Tudor appreciates its timeless design. That's why its more modern replacements have been largely inspired by it. And the current range can be mistaken for these ranges, a little older for someone who is not familiar or experienced with the Tudor brand. In the second half of the 20th century, the French Navy used Tudor diving watches which were mostly blue. This explains the bluish bezel, which is simply magnificent. You see, even with the spotlight, you can see the reflections on the bezel. It ranges from a very light petrol blue to almost black. It's very beautiful. Again, as a tribute to the watches released for the French Navy, there's a small bluish ring here between the crown and the case, which matches the bezel. And finally, in this version, 79220B, we find an aged and burnished leather strap with a hint of midnight blue. It's really very beautiful, and we'll talk about it in a bit more detail. In any case, even today, the Tudor Black Bay remains an iconic model from the Swiss watchmaker Tudor, and this watch has many features to attract and stand out from the new generations of divers. Personally, I much prefer this Smiley and Dial edition, older than the new references. Before moving on to the technical specifications of the watch, consider subscribing if you haven't already. It supports the channel, it's completely free for you, and it would be a shame to miss our future videos. So, remember to give a thumbs up and click the subscribe button below. Thank you in advance. The technical specifications of this Tudor Black Smiley. So, this is a watch that was produced from 2014 to 2016, so only 2 years for this version with the blue bezel. It's important to know that the version with the bezel red was produced starting from 2012. So, these remain very short production periods during which not many units were produced, which is a bit different from today's models which are produced on a larger scale. The case is made of steel. It measures 41 mm in diameter and 12.5 mm in thickness. It features an ETA 2824 movement with 25 joules oscillating at 28,800 beats per hour. The power reserve is given as 38 hours. The watch is water resistant up to 200 meters, so there's no problem for swimming and diving. It's truly a diving watch, so no worries on that front. It obviously has a screw-down crown signed with the Tudor rose. The glass, this inverted dome is quite nice. This glass as well. The lug width measures 22 mm, which will allow you to change the strap quite easily. The watch is sold. Well, it was sold on a leather strap, black with bluish reflections. All the aged striations of the strap are bluish. So, I don't know if you can see them on camera. In any case, it's really very pretty. I had never had a strap like this, with a kind of patina. On the leather marks, it's very pretty. And the watch also comes with a Tudor NATO strap, which I will show you a little later. To finish with the specifications, the reference number of the watch is 79220B. The case of the Tudor Black Bay 79 220B is made of steel and measures 41 mm in diameter and 12.5 mm in thickness. Unlike the Tudor watches equipped with the manufacture caliber, the current watches, this Smiley version is less thick. And this is certainly an important difference to consider when one wishes to acquire a Tudor Black Bay. Why? Because I, for example, went to try it. The new Tudor Black Bay with the manufacture caliber. The watches are almost 14 mm thick. For a diver's watch that only goes to 200 meters, that's a bit much in terms of thickness. On the wrist, comfort is compromised by this thickness. Next, there is a signed and screwed down crown, which allows you to set the time. This crown proudly bears the rose logo of the Swiss manufacturer. I'm trying to zoom in. There you go. So superb. Logo. Very, very nice. It's actually a shame that this logo has been abandoned on the new references, meaning that on the dial of the new references, the rose logo is no longer found. We'll talk a little bit about it later. It's a bit of a shame. To continue, we find a unidirectional bezel with 60 clicks. Hear the sound. So it's a very clean sound. The insert is bluish, but almost black, depending on the lighting. It ranges from a fairly light petrol blue to an almost black shade, so very, very beautiful. I really like this insert. By the way, it reminds me a little of the patinated black bezel of my Rolex 16 610, on which I made a video, so don't hesitate to go watch it. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll see. You can find certain color nuances on the bezel. It's very similar. Obviously, the overall quality is excellent and there is absolutely no play in the bezel. But really no play, not even 1/100th of a millimeter. It's really very pleasant to use, neither too firm nor too soft. The click is pleasant and the grip on the bezel is excellent, especially thanks to the grip, which is mainly around the edge. Finally, on the case we find a screwed down case back that ensures the watch is water resistant to 200 meters. There are several inscriptions on it: Switzerland, Tudor, Geneva. Like with Rolex, this case back is solid, so it's not possible to see the movement. Now, far be it from me to claim to be an expert on the Tudor brand, because it's a brand for which I only have a few references, so I'm not very well versed in the brand's history. But from what I've read, the design of the dial is directly inspired by the model, Tudor 722. So the dial is black matte with a triangular marker at 12 o'clock and rectangular markers at 3, 6 and 9 o'clock. Unlike the Tudor 7922, the indices are not painted on the frame. On the dial they are applied. Visually, this gives a bit of depth to the whole. Secondly, it should be noted that the dial is not flat and the edges are slightly rounded, which once again gives volume to the dial. Despite the monochrome background, there is a certain contrast and relief on this dial, which is quite nice. In the video, it's quite difficult to show you. In any case, the dial is not flat. Thirdly, the hands of these Smiley Tudors take on the iconic shape known as snowflake. This shape of the hand appeared on references 7016 and 7021. Moreover, Tudor will use them again on other watches, such as the 9401, the 9411 and the 9410. Very visible and very readable, these hands are coated with powerful luminous materials, allowing for a good reading of the time. Even in the dark, I have never been a fan of these snowflake hands because I find them quite coarse. But I must admit that on the Tudor Black Bay, they look really good and you get used to them quite quickly. To finish, we find a domed sapphire crystal that protects the dial and hands of the 79220B. The shape of the crystal adds a slightly vintage touch to this watch, which is modern. Unfortunately, there is no anti-reflective treatment, and this can make reading the time difficult depending on the lighting conditions. In this Black Bay Smiley ideal, Tudor fits an ETA 28 to 24 caliber, which has 25 joules and also 28,800 beats per hour. With its low power reserve of 38 hours, the choice of this Swiss movement has long been criticized by the brand's fans. But the fact is that since the release of the recent Tudor Black Bay models, this Tudor Black Bay ETA is acclaimed by the community. Why? Simply because the case thickness. With this ETA caliber, it is barely 12.5 cm, whereas the new references are more around 14 mm. And that makes a very big difference when wearing the watch. It's a diving watch, and believe it or not, more than a millimeter difference. It slightly penalizes the wear, and even, just visually, it's simply less attractive on the wrist. We can also continue with the precision of this caliber, ETA 28-24. The 28-24 is a movement used in many watch references across all brands, and it comes in several grades. The movement fitted by Tudor is adjusted, and frankly, it's outstanding. On mine, the deviation observed over more than a week is 1 second per day, meaning the watch is extremely precise. It's quite amazing. I was pleasantly surprised by that. Afterwards, I made a video about the manufacture movement versus standard movement. As you know, for me, it doesn't necessarily hold great importance for this type of watch. Well, these are not artisanal watches, so feel free to check out the video if you haven't seen it yet. It's quite nice. A pleasant surprise when I opened the Tudor Black Bay box, as it was delivered with 2 straps. The first strap is the famous Tudor NATO, specially designed to perfectly fit the case of the Swiss watch. To the touch, you immediately notice that it is of excellent quality and will withstand water, salt, and almost all elements. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of this Tudor NATO strap because it makes the watch thicker on the wrist. And the opening at the lug area is still too visible. That is to say, when it's on the NATO, you see here, I will have a case height that's too visible, and I don't find that very aesthetically pleasing. So, I'm not a huge fan of NATO because of that. Because NATO is still quite thin, you see. So, well, by the way, this is not a real NATO like the NATO you might buy on military mounts. It should be noted that the spring bars are attached directly inside the strap, and that's really nice, really original. The second strap that was provided to me is the strap on which the watch is mounted. It's a black leather strap with blue stripes. This strap is very pleasant. It is mounted on a signed deployant clasp, Tudor. By the way, I really like this clasp because it features the Tudor inscription, and especially because it incorporates the new logo, the Tudor brand pennant. I find it really very nice, very, very original. Moreover, this leather strap allows you to ultimately convert a diving watch into a casual watch, a watch that you could wear a little bit every day to go to work, to go out with friends, etc. And that's pretty nice because it gives it a slightly more chic touch to a watch that is really sporty. As a result, you can wear the Tudor BB Smiley with his shirt, with a suit, with a t-shirt, with a polo. It will go without any problem. Obviously, no problem changing the strap. You can put on a strap that you like since the lug width is 22 mm. This allows for all kinds of creativity. It should be noted that this Tudor was also available on a steel bracelet. But, frankly, I didn't find anything exceptional about this bracelet. It's a bit like the Rolex oysters. I really don't find anything exceptional about them. Everyone makes a big deal out of it, personally. Well, it's a metal bracelet, but I don't find them better than that, let's say. I'll still show you the deployant clasp because it's really very, very nice. So, the deployant clasp on which we will find various inscriptions. A fairly traditional clasp, but honestly it's very, very beautiful, very comfortable on the wrist. Since the production of this Tudor Black Bay 79-20B stopped in 2016, the only way to acquire one is to turn to the grey market. Tudor is one of the brands of the moment, especially with its Black Bay and Black Bay references. As a result, these are models that haven't really depreciated and in fact have even gained a little. One might have expected a depreciation of older models such as this Smile Ideal. But in fact it stands out and its price has stabilized. It stands out. Why? Because it is much thinner and especially because it has this dial called Smiley. So, with the inscriptions that are rounded, if I may say so, and as a result, it stands out a little from what is being made today. As a result, you can find it for around 2,800 euros for a full set version on a bracelet. Leather. At this price, it's obviously a beautiful watch, precise and robust. And you can find it quite easily on pre-owned watch sales websites. But since it was produced less than the new references, it's likely that this model will become increasingly rare, more difficult to acquire, and especially that its value will probably rise. I think the value of this model will eventually rise to perhaps 3,200, 3,500 euros. Why not? On some enthusiast forums, this Tudor Black Bay ETA is considered the future collector's item of the brand. Millinery Watches even wrote an article specifically about this, which is quite well done, and indeed there is a good chance that it will become the future collector's item of the Black Bay series. Obviously, having the full set is typically an advantage in this kind of market. The steel bracelet will sell for a little bit more. After that, it's up to you to find the version that suits you best. Regarding the packaging, the outer box is a simple white cardboard box, like this one. Then there is a cardboard box that is superb. Here is the lid. The Tudor branding is embossed on it. It is brown, quite thick. It's quite well made. The box is also very pretty. Glossy black with the Tudor logo on top, really excellent quality. Inside we find the holders with the various command papers, a special slot reserved for the bracelet, and of course a small presentation cushion on which you can place the watch. The whole set is really of excellent quality. I myself was surprised. I didn't expect this level of quality. For your information, I recently received a new Lin box. The boxes are really subpar. I don't know what's happening with Swiss manufacturers at the moment. Maybe it's their eco-friendly side, I don't know. But they need to stop offering poor quality boxes. So, here, a very good point for Tudor, who doesn't skimp on the quality of the box. When you buy a so-called luxury watch, it's important to have a nice display to showcase your timepiece. And for that, good point for Tudor. For less than 3,000 euros, it's truly a reliable choice in the world of diving watches. And it's not for nothing that Tudor is a brand that often comes up, and this model is quite frequently seen on the wrists of fans. I turn off the projector to leave you with the natural light to finish this video. So you see, in natural light there's not much lighting. It really gives the impression that the bezel is black. So that's true, it's really beautiful. This bezel is truly well made. The Tudor Black Bay automatic watch 79220B is clearly a watch you can wear every day. Whether it's mounted on a leather strap or on a NATO, it can change its style. Casual, sporty on the NATO, a little more chic on the leather. Really, it's truly versatile. This watch, a small detail, the buckle, or rather the strap loop. It is reversed compared to the other watches I own. It's the first time I have a loop that goes to this side, the inner side. And as a result, I find it quite original. It's funny, it feels a bit strange at first, but it's amusing. In any case, a Tudor Black Bay. Well, it's clearly a good diving watch, but I still have a bit of trouble understanding the general enthusiasm around this watch, Akaze, and more generally around the Black Bay and Black Bay 58. For sure, they are good watches, but they are still quite bland. There's not really any excitement in terms of the dial, the shapes, or the color choices. Here, the model that's a hit is the BB 58 Gilt. Black. Honestly, but how bland this watch is. I was able to try it for 2 weeks. No, honestly, it didn't hit the mark. And with this Tudor Black Bay 79-220B, it's a bit the same. Well, the watch, I like wearing it, but only for very short periods because I find it quite bland. And I have a bit of trouble understanding why that so many people want to acquire a Tudor Black Bay. You might ask why. Did you buy one if you don't like it? First of all, it's because I had a great opportunity, and actually, when I tried it on my wrist, I didn't fall in love with it. But I found it pretty, and it's true that it was a piece missing from my collection. I no longer had any Tudor, non-chrono or modern Tudor at least. And so I thought it could complement my collection with my vintage day date and my big black 79. So it's rather a good thing. It creates a nice harmony within the box, let's say. Afterwards, on the wrist, I'm not sure. Especially since I don't wear it on the NATO strap, I wear it on leather, which automatically excludes diving. Well, to conclude, this Tudor Smiley is likely to become a collector's watch. From the Black Bay collection, that's also why I absolutely wanted this Smiley dial model and not the new references with the manufacture caliber, especially since it features the rose dial. And that for me is also something very important because I'm a bit nostalgic for those years, the Tudor rose years, and so I find it a beautiful tribute. The abandonment of the ETA caliber and the Smiley dial, by the way, hasn't necessarily won over the community. And the fans of Tudor, well, it must be noted that the new Tudor Black Bay models in 1941 are too thick. And as a result, it spoils both the aesthetic, harmony, and the wearing comfort. Unfortunately, Tudor's in-house calibers are not known for their finesse, and that's a real shame. We have the same phenomenon with the BB GMT, which is 14.5, while any other GMT on the market is 12.5. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up to share the link with all your friends. We need to gain more and more visibility. It would be a good thing. And otherwise, of course, we are reachable on our website moonwatch.fr and on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You type Moonwatch all together and you will find us. Find us for this, friends. I'll see you soon for the next video.